And after all of we learned about the die-off of the mammals in this area, it got me to thinking about all the other chemical assaults we've had in this area. 5 years ago, I started recording the arthropod populations in the alfalfa fields in this area. And if you'll notice, Terry, as of 2004, it wasn't just Hymenoptera and bees that went down. All of the arthropod populations went into a decline around here. And I've been just keeping my eyes open, wondering what was the cause of this. I know that they use pesticides heavily in this area. I don't know exactly which pesticides, or I didn't until I started investigating it. And I know that we have the Yuma Proving Grounds right above us, and they do a lot of military testing. But I was very concerned about that. And then when I went to work at this school, I noticed in the population here in this community, which is about 50% Quetzal Native American and about 50% Hispanic. And I noticed that many of them were not only overweight, but asthmatic, had chronic respiratory disease, and were dying at an unusually early age. And you own a health food store in the area. Could you tell me some of your experiences? I'm sure some of these field workers must go in there for herbs and detoxification.
Yeah, a lot of the field workers are very interested in botanica, herbal remedies, and so there's a lot of topical irritation. But the bigger problem is all the herbicides and pesticides and petrochemicals that this valley gets inundated with have an estrogenic compound to them. And when you have estrogen dominance in the system, it causes low thyroid function, adrenal gland disorders, and slower metabolism, more rapid weight gain, diabetes, and all different complications that are associated with the endocrine system. A family that I'm familiar with lives in the middle of their farm and gets crop dusting, or a crop duster flies over adjacent fields. Right in the middle is their home, and each member of the family has a low thyroid function, baby up to grandmother who's had pituitary tumors, bilateral mastectomies, and they show clearly that it's related to the pesticide use in Imperial Valley as well as Yuma County.
Yes, the doctors here have confirmed when I inquired that there is a cluster of thyroid cancer in this area. And interesting that you should mention that, because the pesticides that are used here are largely organophosphates, Roundup, malathion, diazinon, those are all organophosphates. And I'm fearful that someone is using carbofuran. It is legal in the U.S. It was made illegal throughout Europe. Here they only banned the pellet form because it was so toxic to birds and fish. But it's also toxic to humans. And I just heard the other day that over in Kenya, that's how they were killing off the lions, and the vultures that ate the carcasses were dying and dropping out of the sky almost immediately. And that was almost exactly the way that we saw this disappearance of predators up in the North Bard Valley. We saw the coyotes, the raccoons, the mice, the hawks, the falcons, the eagles, all of these predators dropping off, and it disappeared within 20 days. And I know that carbofuran is legal, and I'm fearful that someone has been reckless in using it. And these assaults seem to be more common. We see them all over, don't we?
Well, I've had several instances lately where people have come in who said that they live adjacent to fields and that their domesticated dogs, they got word that farmers were baiting the meat with daikon or some similar compound and feeding it to the dogs, and they're all coming in the store to get vitamin K because the daikon causes bleeding to death. Anyhow, there's there was multiple people who came into my store just for that purpose, and all of them live in the county. It's not, so it's agriculturally related.
And a lot of people in the city use Roundup. Roundup is an organophosphate. And I don't know if our listeners are aware of this, but the Roundup is a product of Monsanto. They hold the patent over Roundup. They got started, actually, making nerve gas. They got started in bioweapons. They still are a big, big factor in bioweapon production. But back to what you were saying about the thyroid function. One of the main side effects and consequences of pesticide poisoning, particularly organophosphates and carbofuran, which is a carbonate, is in fact weight gain, diabetes, and that's what we've seen around here since about the same time they were started using agribusiness. The small farms were gone, the big agribusiness corporations came in. The regulation, the oversight of pesticide use being this close to the border has been limited, to say the least, and we're seeing particularly a very high cancer rate. I personally know of 8 children in this area with leukemia. I didn't see that on CDC's records, but I personally know of 8. And for an area with this small of a population, we sure have a lot of oncologists.
We have a lot of big agro business around here, and something was recently brought to my attention. HR 875 is a bill that was introduced in clear protection of Monsanto and clear benefit to Monsanto and its affiliates, is eliminating organic farms, basically.
It will. It'll eliminate organic farms. It will eliminate small farms. It's so broadly written that bill, that's really a big step now in eliminating our ability to protect ourselves from all of the chemical assaults, the genetically engineered foods that they want us to eat, that we know have pesticides in them, that we know have carcinogenic problems, that we know create hormone imbalances. A lot of the diabetes too that I see around here, I'm convinced is actually a hormone imbalance. It's actually hypothyroidism. I think a lot of it gets misdiagnosed. It's just they don't see a doctor soon enough. The doctor doesn't do enough testing until it develops into diabetes too. But I think most of the problems around here are hormonal. They're thyroid problems.
Right.
And we've got on top of the pesticides, we are surrounded by military testing. We've got a very high level of depleted uranium in this area. They've tested it for over 20 years. And this dust in this area, and this is a dusty area, is slightly radioactive.
You know, I understand that Morgellons disease, it has been theorized by some people anyhow that Morgellons is an agrochemical of some sort used, but you have a different impression on Morgellons?
Well, I think Clifford Carnicom did some good, and I think it pretty much was determined that at least who's making it, we aren't really sure, but it's a nanoparticle. They've been able to isolate the nanoparticle. They've been able to test to see who has it. And by the way, we tested, and 9 out of 10 of the Native Americans that were tested in this area tested positive for Morgellons. We also know that it's being spread, it may be by other means also, but it's being spread by chemtrails. And they chemtrail this area very heavily.